American Top 40.
Now the singer-songwriter who, while backed and promoted by the Beatles, was a flop. He recorded his first album on their Apple label, and it just kind of sat there. Not even a performing tour of the U.S., his own country, helped its sales, or his career. But his second album, recorded for Warner Brothers, was a different story. Even though it was produced by the same man, Peter Asher, who produced the first album on the Beatles label. One song from it, released as a single, came out of the Billboard Hot 100 charts 6 weeks ago. This week, it's at number 10. Here's Fire and Rain, written, sung by James Taylor. It moved up 7 from last week. Now at number 10, Fire and Rain, James Taylor.
American Top 40.
Now the current hit by the young pop star who gets as much respect from the establishment as he does from his own generation. He recently appeared at New York's Philharmonic Hall, which usually books the heavy talents of classical music. And Time magazine said he was right in his league. Now that's high praise for an artist who's only 22 years old. And he was unknown until a year and a half ago. At number 37, here's James Taylor and Country Road. Debuting song of the week at number 37, James Taylor and Country Road, and the countdown continues.
It's from coast to coast.
Time now for an AT40 special by the soft rock superstar who had his greatest triumph last year, just a few weeks after his first #1 record. His pet pig, Mona, won first prize at a livestock show. It was the Agricultural Society Livestock Show and Fair at Martha's Vineyard, the Massachusetts island where this artist lives. The swine division's blue ribbon went to his beautiful sow, a gentle, affectionate porker named Mona. But that's not all. She also won the purple ribbon for being the best animal in the entire show. You think he wasn't proud? Probably even prouder than when his version of the Carole King tune hit #1 about a year ago. Here's recording star and champion pig farmer, James Taylor. #1 in AT40 about a year ago. James Taylor's You've Got a Friend.
American Top 40.
Well, now I have the current smash by one of the most successful singer-songwriters of the last 5 years. A 27-year-old musician from Boston who broke both of his hands a few years ago in a motorcycle accident. But that wasn't the worst of his bad times. For a while, when he was in his late teens, the artist thought he might have a broken mind. Things got so bad, he finally had himself committed to a mental hospital in Massachusetts. That's where he finished high school and started putting the pieces of his life together again. Several years later, he had his first chart record, a top 5 smash, a song written about his experiences at the hospital. That was Fire and Rain, and it was back in 1970, remember? Well, things are a lot happier these days for James Taylor. His body and his mind are all mended now. And this week, his 9th chart hit is at number 16 and moving up, called How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You.
How sweet it is to be loved by you.
James Taylor, after a couple of weeks in the survey up at number 5, falls to number 16. That's How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You.
American Top 40.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood and American Top 40. And this next artist in our survey says he believes he was saved from almost certain death by the woman that he married. During the last 7 years, this superstar has run up a string of million-selling singles and albums, and he's become one of the major forces in pop music. Now, on the surface, it looks like he's got just about everything going for him. But the road that he took to that success was anything but smooth and easy. The man, James Taylor. And he recently told writer Cameron Crowe just how much of his success he feels he owes to his wife, Carly Simon Taylor. He says, and I quote, "My health was never good to begin with, and I was once in circles where it's the accepted thing to be killing yourself. I think she saved my life. If she didn't actually pull me from the teeth of disaster, she certainly turned my life around to the extent that I won't die in 10 years where I might have before." End of quote. Well, today, James Taylor, with a lot of help from his wife, has kicked the hard drug habit that once threatened to bring an early end to his life. And he's turning out some of the best music of his career, like his latest, at number 5 this week. Here's James Taylor with Handyman. James Taylor with a big mover this week, all the way from number 12 up to number 5, 7 notches for Handyman.
American Top 40.
This is Casey in Hollywood, and it's time now for the current hit by the artist whose career got off to a big start several years ago when he appeared on the cover of Time magazine. But this man says it nearly ruined him. His name is James Taylor. He was a newcomer then back in 1971 who'd only had a couple of top 40 records, and he told rock writer Cameron Crowe how the whole experience affected him. He says, "The cover of Time is a jinx. It's a publicity wallop that very few people can handle. Elton John and David Bowie seem to be able to, but it really froze me," said James Taylor. "It made me overconscious about trying to keep doing what I did to get there. I was reeling. Everything was happening so fast. Nothing seemed at all real to me. It's only in retrospect that I realize all that I survived." End of quote. Well, it's been 6 years now since that Time cover, and since then, James Taylor has truly earned the honor he felt came a little too soon. This week, his latest hit is up to number 32. Here's James Taylor with Your Smiling Face. James Taylor, second week on the chart, moving up 4 notches with Your Smiling Face. This week at number 32. 31 hits to number 1 and counting down.
American Top 40.
Now we're up to the current hit by a star who got his start as a protege of the Beatles, but he had to abandon their help before he could make it on his own. The singer was discovered in New York back in the 60s by a good friend of the Beatles, producer Peter Asher. Peter was working for the Beatles label Apple Records at the time, and when he played this singer's music for John, Paul, George, and Ringo, they said, "Sign him up." The Beatles really got behind this singer, telling members of the press how much they liked his music and how much they thought of his talent. Now, you'd think that that kind of an endorsement would give this singer a ticket to ride on the overnight success express, right? But it didn't happen that way. The singer couldn't get a record anywhere near the top 40. So, finally, he decided to change labels. He took his producer, Peter Asher, with him, and a few months later, they came up with his first hit, a top 5 smash called Fire and Rain. This week, the man the Beatles couldn't help moves up 2 notches to number 28 with his latest hit. Here's James Taylor, Up on the Roof. Up on the Roof, the only remake in the countdown this week on American Top 40. James Taylor did it. It's at number 28, moving up 2. 27 big ones to number 1, and we're counting them down.
The hits from coast to coast.